Now that you've visualized how you want your mix to sound, you can begin organizing your mixing session. There are various ways to do this, there's no one correct way, but I do recommend organizing your session in a way that has function and not just aesthetic appeal. One great way to organize your mix is to place the tracks that are meant to be focused on throughout the song towards the top of the mix. Those key tracks are often going to be focused on more in the mixing session as well, so it's important to know what your priorities are. What you can also do at this stage is actually group individual instrument tracks, so they can be adjusted and processed together later on. For example, if you have a lead vocal, another track with other takes that you want to use to double that lead vocal, as well as a few harmonizing vocal tracks, you can group those together so that down the line you'll be able to process all those vocals as a group if need be. Something you should also be doing at this point is seeing what volume each of these tracks should have relative to one another. If you listened to the episode that talked about gain staging and you did that appropriately, and if you organize the tracks in your session from most present to least present, or most important to least important, whatever method you chose, it's going to be easier to say, well, those acoustic guitars are kind of down low on my list. I want them to be in the background quite a bit. So you're going to know that that needs to be a very low relative volume. Once you've gotten all of the relative volume set, everything should sound pretty good together, even without further processing. I feel like a lot of people think that things aren't going to fit together or blend well together until you start breaking out all the different mixing techniques and processors. That's just not true. I mean, if you're working with a band and you heard them play the song during the recording session, it probably sounded really good, and that's how you want your raw recordings to sound. Finally, you can start adjusting the panning settings on all of your tracks. Now, there are standard choices when it comes to panning certain instruments and not others. For example, bass kick, bass guitar, those are usually up front and center with your lead vocals as well. Things like backing vocals, guitars, things that usually have more than one take being used, those are often panned to the sides of the mix. But of course, there's no one way to do it. So as long as you consider all the things that we talked about when it comes to considering that left to right dimension of the mix, you can begin to experiment with finding the place for each instrument that sounds just right to you when it comes to where to place it on the stereo spectrum. At this point, you should have a song that's instrumentation, its part writing, function very well together, and in later episodes, we'll talk about how to employ further mixing techniques that aim to enhance the best parts of this raw mix, reduce the worst, and add some more creativity to the process as well.